You know, that's uncalled for. And Mr. Ramsey, you too.
Stay out of my airspace.
Gladly. So, Mr. Connor, I think we've answered your question. The next speaker is Eve Becker Doyle.
Eve Becker Doyle. I live in Ridgeway, and I'm the Uray County representative on the Montrose Airport Advisory Board. Can you hear me?
You need to get closer.
Okay, how's that?
Much better, thank you.
I had two questions, and they've been answered, but I did want to thank you for having the airport legal counsel guy here. Your comments were very helpful and informative. I'm familiar with antitrust, and that does restrict certain things, and obviously is a big part of the code and the regulations. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Bill Patterson.
All right. Sorry to be late.
Yeah, Bill,
had
can
work
you?
to do.
You're going to have to just.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, Bill Patterson, 2797 Vega Drive, Montrose. I have really one question of Mr. Reamer, and that is Eagle Vale has probably in the last 20 years been, if you will, solicited many times for to put in an additional FBO. They sell about four times the fuel, but really not from an economic standpoint. My understanding, they refused to provide space for an additional FBO based that the existing FBO provided adequate services, that there was not space available, even though the bidders offered to build facilities. From that standpoint, how do you clear that this is a requirement?
Well, I can't speak to a decision that was made by another entity. I will say that in the Eagle County Regional Airport has on its airport layout plan space that's been identified for use by a second FBO, and they are currently going through an airport master planning update process which continues to identify space being made available for a second FBO. There have been questions in here about what's going on at other airports. Of course, I can only speak really to what's going on here, but it's important to understand that this conversation about second FBOs goes on in other communities and other airports, whether they have a second FBO or not. Many of them have space that's identified on their airport layout plans, which are those documents that are approved by the FAA that identify specific areas that are available for commercial aeronautical activities. So I'm not familiar with the decision that's been made to deny access to the airport based on the principle that there's insufficient market demand. If that decision was made at some point in the long history of Eagle County, I don't know about it. I don't know anything about that decision. So I can tell you what the assurances require, and I can tell you what the FAA policies say and what the FAA adjudications say.
Thank you. That really leads in. The first ramp was repaid by the FAA as it was part of the original airport master plan. Is the current plan under an approved airport master plan? In other words, why should the county be paying for your ramp services when the FAA will pay for it if it is part of your airport master plan? And if it isn't, how do you get it as a part of the airport master plan?
Lloyd? Is it not working? You have to hold the mute button down to turn it on, and you'll go to green. Well, the battery may have died.
Check. Okay, want to step back just a little bit and address the question about Eagle Vale. If you recall, the Daily Press interviewed the airport director at that airport, and it is in the Daily Press that he had commented that if they did receive a request for a second FBO, that they would be issuing an RFP, just like Montrose. That came out in the Daily Press a few months ago, so just comment on that. And then your when you have a commercial entity come forward like Majestic Jet did, you don't know when that's going to happen, and it's hard to put something like that, it's difficult to plan for something like that you have not yet perceived. And so when they came forward with this business plan and we had space available, we went ahead and followed our federal grant obligations and negotiated in good faith. And I think Mr. Reamer explained how that process works earlier, and we took it from that point.
I understand, but if it is part of the airport master plan, then it conceivably could be repaid by the FAA and not the citizens of Montrose.
I understand what you're saying there.
Okay.
Commissioner Ellis has a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, Bill, it's a kind of a question, clarification. When your first comment was about the ramp that was created for JCP, you made some
Really, it wasn't created for JCP. It was a ramp that was part of the original airport master plan.
Okay, but remember the whole thing that happened there. You were there because I think you approved that.
Mhm.
The refi in August of '06 and I think a little bit later on, you went ahead and approved the construction of that ramp,
Right.
which at the end of the day, any way you cut it, it ultimately benefited JCP to be able to use it, and they pay a per square foot lease on that. But that's the reason FAA dollars, my understanding at the time, was not used, and it was through a bond refi, so the FAA would not even be involved.
No. It was done because in order to get the FAA money, it has to be put in year by year by year. And we had put it in, but it hadn't come up for review. So we knew that it was about 1 to 2 years out for repayment, but we knew that we would get repaid by the FAA for construction of that ramp.
When did we get repaid for that? I don't recall. Maybe we did.
Well,
Yes, we did.
What year, Bill? I don't recall it.
It was after I left. No, it wasn't.
what piece of it Bill, are you saying that we were repaid on?
The commercial ramp, which would be in front of the Friedkin and
Okay. Well,
We're
yeah,
an FPL.
that actually happens over time. But you bring up a very good point with regard to Majestic and them building the ramp. The FAA works on a reimbursement program. Montrose County would still have to provide that credit before we requested any type of reimbursement. That reimbursement would be in the future. There is certain circumstances where you can use passenger facility charges and/or entitlement and discretionary funding for those things. But when that happens, what needs to take place initially is the ramp has to be constructed to an FAA-approved standard. We are in a situation now where Majestic has told us that they would provide that standard and they would build the apron to the FAA standard. They're actually going to build it, they've suggested, to the same standard that we're building the federal apron that we're going to be constructing this summer. So we would hold them to that. It is in their contract to go ahead and meet the FAA standard with regard to any construction that they're undertaking on our airport.
I understand, but all I'm saying is, before you move forward, wouldn't you want to have this part of an approved airport master plan so that you know that in the future you could get reimbursed by the FAA? That's all I'm asking.
Well, the FAA doesn't approve a master plan, and that doesn't have to do with the reimbursement. Now, if the ramp meets the criteria that the FAA sets forth, there could be a circumstance in the future where we could request reimbursement, but they don't approve master plans.
Commissioner Ellis has another question or comment.
Bill, just clarify something. During the process of when this was advertised originally, we had two responders, Jetaway and Black Canyon JCP. Was it ever suggested that either one of these entities, if awarded, would be obligated to construct their own ramp? I'm not sure how it evolved that we ended up refining the bonds and building it with the future expectation of reimbursement. Would that have been a reasonable request, or was it even made?
There was ramp space available, and there was construction to be considered and repaid under the Jetaway bid for ramp in front of the Jetaway hangar. But at the same time, from a Black Canyon The problem we had was the original site that was selected for the FBO, we had to get access to one of the private hangars. And that became a problem. And the airport manager said, wait a minute, we have plenty of space up at the other end, let's move it there. But it did require the construction of a ramp. That ramp was a part of the airport master plan and a part of the overall, if you will, commercial development in that area. So it became not only a ramp that was already approved, if you will, but also a ramp that was eligible for reimbursement before we started out.
All right. Any other?
Just one, there was a private operator at Montrose Airport before all of this.
Yes, I now recall.
What the name is now, but anyway,
Okay.
there was a private operator there.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. It wasn't really my intention to speak, but after hearing the comments, I feel compelled to speak. It's Tricia Joy, 893 West Oak Grove, Montrose County.
Could you hold the mic just a little closer? Thank you.
First, I want to thank the commissioners. You have a really thankless job. What you've been through, first with Stumer, the Stumer process, and now with the JCP process, and now with this process, is difficult for me to imagine what it's been like for you. And certainly, I've read about it. I've read the documents. I understand much of the position of JCP. I might say I speak for myself as an individual, not for any company that I'm associated with. I want to thank the people, particularly Lloyd, and the people involved in the airport through the years. We operate a company that has flown out of Montrose from a hangar on the Montrose Airport for the company is over 20 years, and they've flown out of the Montrose Airport. The business is nationwide, and it wouldn't be available without the quality of our airport. From having served on the Telluride Montrose Regional Airport Authority, I can say that we are viewed nationally, we are viewed regionally by a number of people. Telluride recently had an economic development analysis, and you may be surprised to know that the most valuable thing that Telluride recognized that they had going for them was the Montrose Regional Airport. It is an incredibly valuable facility. We are adjacent. I say I'm speaking for myself individually, but the business of the Hampton Inn is adjacent to JCP. The Black Canyon Jet Center runs an incredibly professional organization. We have many pilots that stay with us. We hear the comments of how well it's run, and we greatly appreciate the business that we have from it. That being said, I fully understand that it is not an issue of competition, and it isn't a question of whether another airport can be supported. That an individual has come into our community and views it as valid to open another FBO is, to me, phenomenal. It is in a fantastic town with tremendous opportunity. What I have seen of the civil discourse in this community, in this room, is an embarrassment to me. I served 3.5 years on the Montrose County Planning Commission, and I saw this kind of gang mentality. It's a shame we've become this. That's why I'm speaking. It's a shame that we think that this passes for public comment. It's a shame. And if you think that you're going to elect another county commissioner who's going to give the time that these men have given over to this, under these kind of circumstances, who wants it? Who would want this job?